the world was quiet. Until Donald Trump took the stage at a conservative summit in Dallas. With cameras flashing and reporters holding their breath, he leaned forward and dropped the bomb. "I challenge Captain Ibrahim Traoré to a live debate. African policies, corruption, power. Let's see what this young soldier really believes." The crowd roared. Some laughed. Others looked stunned. Burkina Faso, just waking up under the West African sun, was already buzzing. The challenge hit national airwaves within minutes. Traoré hadn't even responded yet, and yet it felt like the whole world was watching. Was it a trap? Was Trump serious? Or was it just another show? At the presidential office in Ouagadougou, Traoré watched the clip in silence. His advisors argued back and forth, warning him not to fall for Western provocation. But Traoré's eyes didn't move from the screen. If he wants to talk about Africa, let's talk. The words were calm, but his heart was burning. This wasn't about ego. This was for the people. He stood up, turned to his staff and said, "Get me the world stage. I accept the debate." And just like that, the countdown began. The world was now split in two. CNN aired fiery panels. Fox News ran headlines like, "Trump will expose African tyrants." But in Ouagadougou, something deeper was happening. Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat in a small room with dusty walls, no golden curtains or marble floors, just the smell of sweat, strategy, and survival. He wasn't rehearsing for a show. He was remembering. He thought about the mothers who lined up for grain, not knowing if they'd feed their children that night. He thought about the young miners, their hands blackened from digging under foreign-owned soil, while their schools crumbled. He thought about Sankara, and his voice cracked when he whispered to himself, "This is bigger than Trump. This is about us." His advisor Miriam brought in a stack of briefing documents, but he pushed them aside. "I'm not debating with paper. I'm debating with my heart." Outside, children in schoolyards were drawing pictures of him shaking Trump's hand. But inside, Traoré was already at war, with history, with poverty, with silence. He walked outside into the golden light and stared at the sky. The wind smelled like dust and change. He wants a show. I'll give him a revolution. Live. Back in the U.S., the build-up was turning into a circus. The debate would be held at the United Nations General Assembly Hall, a place known for silence and diplomacy, now set for a showdown unlike anything before. Trump's team rolled out a Hollywood-style promo. Africa's future, exposed. Can a soldier defend a continent? He walked into rehearsals in a custom navy blue suit, flanked by advisors and stylists. But his tone was sharp. "I want dominance, not diplomacy." His team handed him talking points. African aid misuse, military coups, anti-democratic behaviors. He smirked. "Perfect. I'll bury him on live TV." Meanwhile, networks debated. Is Traoré even ready for this? Does Africa have a voice? But the world didn't know Traoré was preparing somewhere else. Not in a hall, not with lights. He was walking barefoot through a village where women carried water for miles, where kids studied under trees. And every handshake, every smile, every tear made him more prepared than any briefing book could. The world saw a debate, but Traoré, he saw a moment to break centuries of silence. 3 days before the debate, Captain Ibrahim Traoré visited a remote school in rural Burkina Faso. There were no desks, just cracked cement floors. The teacher held a stick of charcoal, writing on a wall. But the children, they smiled, they laughed, they sang. One little boy, Yakuba, caught Traoré's attention. His uniform was torn, feet bare, yet he stood and spoke. "When you speak to the world, tell them, we are not poor. We just want to breathe." Traoré knelt beside him, eyes glassy. "I promise," he whispered. They will hear your voice through mine." Yakuba grinned. "Even Mr. Trump?" "Especially him." That night, Traoré skipped his media rehearsal. Instead, he sat under a lantern with Mariam, his advisor, listening to voice notes from farmers, students, nurses. He wasn't preparing sound bites. He was carrying stories. Each voice made his heart heavier. Each voice made him stronger. Meanwhile, U.S. News was mocking him. "Captain who? He doesn't even own a tie." But Traoré wasn't dressing for a show. He was dressing for war. A war of dignity. A war for truth. And the world had no idea what was coming. On the eve of the debate, Traoré received a strange call from his mother. She rarely spoke on camera, but her voice was shaking. "My son, are you sure you want to do this? They don't fight fair." There was a long silence on the line. Traoré could feel the weight in her voice. A mother's fear is never quiet. "They might laugh at you, twist your words, say Africa is just war and hunger. But remember, your father died believing this land would rise." She broke down, crying. "Promise me one thing," she said. "No matter what happens, don't lose your fire." Traoré swallowed hard. "I won't, Maman. I carry you into that room." As he hung up, the weight of generations pressed on his chest. This wasn't just a debate anymore. This was for his father, who died building wells no one funded. For his mother, who sold vegetables to pay for his school. For the children barefoot in fields. The West thought he was just a soldier. But what they didn't see was that he had nothing to lose and nothing to prove, except the truth. The United Nations debate hall was transformed into a global spectacle. Red carpet rolled out. Flags lined the walls. CNN, Al Jazeera, France 24. Everyone was watching. Trump arrived in full glory. Flashing teeth, expensive suit, and a smirk that could split nations. He waved like a king entering his castle. People clapped. Some booed. But when Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped onto the stage, silence. He wore a simple olive uniform. No script. No security fanfare. Just the calm of someone who came with truth. Trump leaned over, chuckling into the mic. "You look like you're about to start a revolution." Traoré smiled back, eyes firm. "Maybe I am." There was an awkward laugh from the audience. Then the moderator announced, "Tonight, the world watches history." Traoré glanced around. So many eyes, so many doubts. But then he saw something behind the cameras. Yakuba. Someone had brought him to New York. The little boy waved, and in that moment, Traoré's heart roared with fire. He didn't need applause. He needed the world to listen. The debate began. The moderator, a calm British voice, welcomed the world to what was being called the debate of the decade. Trump struck first. "Africa," he declared, "has had trillions in aid and still hasn't gotten it together. Why should the world trust your leadership, Captain?" The crowd chuckled. Cameras zoomed in. The pressure was on. But Traoré didn't flinch. He calmly leaned forward and said, "You speak of aid as if it were a gift, but it came with conditions, loans that robbed our minerals, help that built palaces, not hospitals." The room shifted, quiet. "If I hand you food, then steal your land. Did I feed you or starve you quietly?" Trump blinked, stunned. "Let's talk facts," Traoré continued. "When the West sends aid, 70% returns as profit. My people don't need pity. They need partnership." The audience stirred. A few clapped. But it wasn't applause Traoré wanted. It was awakening. Trump tried to interrupt. But Traoré looked at him directly. "You asked why the world should trust me. I say, because I don't pretend to be a savior." He had landed his first emotional strike. And the tide was shifting. Just as Trump prepared a comeback, Traoré surprised everyone. He pulled out a small USB stick and handed it to the moderator. "Before I answer more, I want the world to hear something." The lights dimmed. A video began playing on the large screen behind them. It showed a secret recording, an African village meeting, where a foreign mining executive was caught saying, "They'll never fight back. Just give their leaders contracts and take the land." The room fell into silence. People gasped. The video continued, showing bulldozers flattening farms in Burkina Faso, while children cried in the background. No music, no commentary, just raw, heartbreaking footage. A woman in the audience sobbed quietly. Trump looked uncomfortable. "I don't know anything about that," he muttered. Traoré didn't raise his voice. "This is what African aid sometimes looks like. Eviction, hunger, and pain." He paused. "And the world wonders why we stand up." For a moment, even the critics grew quiet. The screen went black, but the ache in every heart watching stayed lit like a flame. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a global unveiling of hidden wounds. After the video ended, a strange thing happened. Trump didn't speak. He sat back, stared at the floor, and fiddled with his pen. The crowd waited. Was this part of the act? Traoré remained still. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He looked like a man remembering every tear he'd ever seen fall from a mother in his village. The moderator broke the tension. "Mr. Trump, would you like to respond?" Trump cleared his throat. I wasn't aware of that situation." His words were soft, uncharacteristic. Traoré leaned in gently. "It's not about you, Mr. Trump, it's about truth. And truth doesn't wait for permission." A journalist in the front row wiped her eyes. Another whispered, "Why does this hurt so much?" Because it was real. Because it was raw. Because for the first time, Africa wasn't being explained. It was speaking. Traoré closed his eyes briefly, as if carrying a million voices. "We don't want pity. We want justice." That sentence echoed through every hallway, every household watching live. And far away, in a village with no electricity, Yakuba listened on a radio powered by sunlight. He smiled, because his voice had finally reached the world. As the world tried to make sense of Traoré's video, another surprise came. The moderator read an email sent to the debate organizers just hours earlier, from the daughter of a former Burkina activist killed decades ago under mysterious, foreign-supported circumstances. Her voice cracked as the letter played on screen. "My father believed in Africa. He refused to sign away our gold. A week later, he was found missing. They said he fell into a river. But we know what really happened." The crowd listened in silence. The letter ended with this: "To President Traoré, you carry my father's dream now. Please don't let them bury the truth again." Camera cut to Traoré, his jaw clenched, his eyes wet but steady. "I knew her father," he said softly. "He died with empty hands but a full heart." Trump looked shaken. The crowd was no longer split. They were unified in quiet respect. Even those who came to mock now felt something twist inside their chest. This wasn't a political contest anymore. It was a resurrection of buried voices. And Traoré stood like a living monument to those silenced by history. Just as the debate resumed, the moderator paused. "We've just received a live video feed from Bamako, Mali." The screens flickered, and there she was, a woman named Awa, standing beside a field of empty classrooms. Behind her were rows of broken chalkboards and children with dusty notebooks. "We don't need foreign promises," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to keep our teachers from starving. We need someone to see us." She looked straight into the camera. "President Traoré, your voice is our only hope left." A young boy behind her raised his hand. "Tell the world we want to be doctors too, not just beggars." People in the audience wiped their eyes. Even some journalists put down their pens. The moderator turned to Trump. "Mr. President, would you like to respond?" Trump sighed, shifted uncomfortably. "I never realized how bad things had gotten." Traoré responded gently. "They've always been this bad. The question is, why was no one listening?" It hit the world like thunder. This debate had become a mirror, and millions were seeing their own silence reflected in it. As the debate neared its peak, something utterly unexpected happened. A woman stood up in the audience, blonde hair, about 50, with a trembling voice. "I'm American. My son died as a contractor in West Africa. He thought he was helping. But before he died, he called me crying." Her voice cracked. He said, "Mom, we're not building anything. We're just taking things. It's not what they told us." The room went silent. "He told me to tell someone if he didn't come home. And now, here I am." Tears filled her eyes. "Captain Traoré, I believe you, and I'm sorry for what my country has done." Traoré stood slowly. He walked to the edge of the stage, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Your son had a conscience. That makes him our brother." She burst into tears, and in that moment, white American mother, African revolutionary, one stage, one truth. The world saw something deeper than politics. Humanity. Not a dry eye remained in the room, and across the world, people watching from buses, bars, bedrooms began crying too. This wasn't just emotional, it was healing. As the debate seemed to slow down, a journalist raised her hand with urgency. "I have something to show," she said, holding up a yellowing folder labeled "Confidential, West Africa, 1992. Trump blinked. Traoré didn't. She continued, "This file was leaked to us by an anonymous source inside the U.S. State Department. It details U.S. involvement in halting local gold refinery projects in Burkina Faso, because it would make them too economically independent." Gasps echoed. The screen behind her displayed memos signed by American officials. "So we didn't just ignore African progress, we sabotaged it," the journalist said, her voice trembling. Trump tried to speak, but Traoré calmly lifted the mic. "This is what we've lived through, our future written by outsiders. But no more." The hall went silent again. Then a single clap from the audience. Then another. Then a storm. Even those watching at home whispered, "How did we never know this?" It wasn't just a debate now, it was a reckoning. A live feed cut in suddenly. A shaky video from a remote village in northern Burkina Faso. A barefoot girl stood in front of a chalkboard made from clay. She held a worn-out book and spoke in soft French, translated live for the audience. "Captain Traoré, thank you for giving us new pencils last month. My sister cried because she had never had her own." She held up the pencil like a trophy. "They said Africa is poor, but my teacher says we are rich, in courage." The girl paused. "Please don't stop fighting for us. We want to learn." She smiled, then waved at the camera. "I want to be a president like you." The hall was frozen. Even Trump looked down, swallowing hard. Traoré placed a hand on his chest, whispering, "That's why I came here." The moderator choked up, wiped her tears. "Ladies and gentlemen, what more can be said?" Every viewer, every mother, every teacher watching from around the globe felt a wave of emotion crash into their hearts. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about a pencil, and what it represents when the world forgets a child's dream. As the debate entered its final stretch, something nobody expected happened. Trump turned slowly to Traoré. He sighed and said, "You're right." Gasps. Even the camera crew fumbled. "I came here thinking I'd dominate this debate. But I was wrong. I've listened tonight, and what I heard shook me." He turned to the audience. "I've been in power. I know how the game works. But sometimes, people like him, he motioned to Traoré. They remind you that power is not just control, it's care. The room held its breath. I didn't know about the sabotage. I didn't know about the pencils. I didn't want to know. He looked down. But now I do. Traoré stepped forward. Acknowledgement is the beginning of healing. The two men locked eyes. Then, slowly, Trump extended his hand. The world stood still. Traoré took it. And in that moment, two enemies divided by continents shared a silent promise. The audience rose to their feet. The real debate wasn't won by who shouted louder. It was won by who listened. As the cameras began to wind down, the moderator announced, "We've just received a message from a man in Burkina Faso. He insisted it be read at the end." She unfolded a handwritten note and began, "My name is Musa Ouedraogo. I am a farmer. I never went to school. But today my 12-year-old son wrote me a poem after watching this debate. He said, 'Papa, Traoré speaks like you, strong, quiet, and true.' I cried. My son now wants to build wells. He says he will never wait for aid again. Captain, you made my child believe in himself." Tears welled up in the moderator's eyes. The camera cut to Traoré. He whispered, "That is victory." Even Trump had gone quiet, looking into the floor like he was questioning everything he'd ever been told about Africa. The audience, once full of political curiosity, was now wrapped in raw, human truth. It was no longer about power. It was about hope. And hope had a name now. Africa. No one expected what happened next. Traoré stood up. He walked from his podium, gently removed his military beret, and placed it on the moderator's table. Today, he said, was not about who wins, it was about who wakes up. The audience rose to its feet, stunned. Trump hesitated, then followed. Together, side by side, they walked toward the center of the stage. Then Traoré turned to Trump and asked, "Will you visit Burkina Faso? Not as a president, as a man?" Trump blinked. "Yes, I will." A single African drum beat played softly in the background, signaling the unity that was once unimaginable. Suddenly, across the globe, phones buzzed. Trending number 1. Trump accepts Traoré's invitation to Africa. In classrooms, homes, refugee camps, and presidential offices, people stopped what they were doing. Some smiled, some wept. The most unlikely debate had become the most powerful lesson in human dignity the world had seen in years. 1 week later, a picture went viral. It was that same barefoot girl from chapter 14. This time, she held a tiny handmade flag with crayons. On one side, the Burkina Faso flag. On the other, the U.S. flag. She stood outside her clay school and shouted to the phone camera, "Thank you for hearing us." Below the post, millions commented, "I've never cried this much in my life. I didn't know who Traoré was before. Now I'll never forget him." This is what leadership should look like. The world had changed. Traoré, once an underdog, had redefined what it meant to lead, not with anger, not with weapons, but with truth and the soul of his people. If this story touched your heart, don't just watch, respond. Like this video to stand with every forgotten village. Comment the word hope if you believe Africa's time has come. Subscribe to this channel because we are just getting started telling the stories that others won't. Don't scroll yet, just take a deep breath. If this story made you cry, share it. Someone else out there needs to see it too. Thank you for watching.